Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I am Azra San. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Expedite the production of organic fertilizer. President directs the army to construct necessary equipment. Minister Namal Rajapaksa appointed as the State Minister of Digital Technology and Entrepreneur Development. 15 issues unresolved. 22 health sector unions stage a 4-hour strike. SLMA writes to the President, requests to look into the possibility of administering the Sputnik vaccine instead of the second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
On to our lead story now. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa instructed the relevant officials to start the process of manufacturing organic fertilizer essential to the Maha harvesting season locally. President issued these directives at a meeting held with subject ministers and authorities at the Presidential Secretariat.
The President has given instructions to carry out a study on the machinery required for the production of organic fertilizer and to import them and also manufacture the machinery here in Sri Lanka. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had said that the Department of Government Factory and Engineering Division of Sri Lanka Army can contribute towards the manufacturing process of this machinery. According to the President's Media Division, focus has been drawn towards manufacturing organic fertilizer at a provincial level and the importance of providing technical knowledge to the relevant institutions that will carry out the manufacturing process of fertilizer was also highlighted at the meeting. The head of state pointed out that the material required for the production of organic fertilizer can be extracted from nature itself while safeguarding the beauty and the cleanliness of the environment. The President had said that the regional economy can be strengthened through the contribution of some of the beneficiaries.
Even if we provide organic fertilizer to the farmers, some of them tend to misuse that. When the President proposed this for the first time, we instructed the eco-soil substrates to obtain soil samples from the ground. Even though we give organic fertilizer to farmers, recommendations must be issued for the soil samples we have collected. The method we use to produce compost fertilizer is by using biodegradables. There is another group of farmers who use microbes for this production. There is a technology like that. Our stance is that we should take this technology to the farmers.
The equipment used to test soil samples were officially handed over to the Commissioner General of Agrarian Development and the Director General of Agriculture today. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa highlighted that making the organic fertilizer program a success is a need of this generation, and it was decided at the meeting that farmers must be given a printed set of guidelines to educate them on the proper usage of organic fertilizer.
Meanwhile, Minister Namal Rajapaksa was sworn in as the new Minister of Digital Technology and Entrepreneur Development in the presence of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa today. In addition to the new ministerial portfolio, Minister Namal Rajapaksa is currently operating in the capacity of the Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs. Minister Namal Rajapaksa was first elected to Parliament after contesting the 2010 general election from the Hambantota district and operated as a Member of Parliament in the ruling party till 2015. With the change of regimes in 2015, he acted as an opposition MP and was appointed as a cabinet minister in 2019 during the government of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
The section of the Express Pearl vessel that is above sea level is continuing to sink. A team Newsfirst reached the current location of the ship that is expected to sink in a few hours.
අපි මේ මොහොතකට රැඳී සිටින්නේ පමුණුගම ගැඹුරු මුහුදු තීරයේ. අපිට පේනවා ඇති මේ මුහුදු තීරය මොන තරම් රළු ස්වභාවයක් මේ වන විට ගෙන තිබෙනවාද කියලායි. අප මාධ්‍යවේදීන් විදිහට මේ විදිහට මේ මහා සාගරයට ආවේ මේ වන විට මුහුදුබත් වෙමින් පවතින එක්ස්ප්‍රස් පර්ල් නෞකාවේ නවතම තොරතුරු නවතම දර්ශන අපිට සජීවීකරණය කරන්නට තවත් සුළු මොහොතකින් පැය කිහිපයකින් මොහොතින් මොහොත මේ නැවේ ඉතුරු වී තිබෙන බඳ ප්‍රදේශයන් මේ මහා සාගරය ගිල දමාවි. මේ මහා සාගරයේ ප්‍රතාපවත් යෝධයෙකුණු එක්ස්ප්‍රස් පර්ල් නෞකාවේ නවතම තත්වයයි ඔබ මේ දකින්නේ. අපගේ මුහුදු තීරයට ඒ වගේම දිස්ත්‍රික්ක 5ක වෙරළ තීරයන්ට හද බල පරිසර හානියක් සිද්ධ වුණා. එක්ස්ප්‍රස් පර්ල් නෞකාව මේ වන විට කිසිවක් නොකලාසේ ඉතාමත් නිසල්මනේ මේ මහා සාගරයට මුහුදුබත් වෙමින් පවතිනවා. සමහර විට මේ දර්ශනය විය හැකි මේ නැව මුහුද මතු පිට තිබෙන අවසන් දර්ශනය. හේතුව තවත් සුළු මොහොතකින් මේ නැව මුහුදු පතුලට කිඳා බහින්න නියමිතයි. මේ සාගරයේ මුළුමනින්ම මේ නෞකාව ගිල ගන්නා තුරු අප සූදානම් මේ හැම දෙයක්ම ඔබට ඒ විදියටම තොරතුරු වාර්තා කරන්නට. නිවුස් ෆර්ස්ට් වෙනුවෙන් මම පහන් චන්ද්‍රමාල් වින්දන ප්‍රසාද් හා චමින්ද්‍ර කරුණාරත්න සමගින් පමුණුගම වෙරළ තීරයේ සිට.
What will be the next step?
Initial investigations have revealed that a majority of the cargo aboard the vessel were destroyed. Navy divers today inspected the section of the ship that is sinking. An oil spill taking place is currently the worst possible scenario. The ship is said to be carrying some 300 metric tons of heavy fuel oil.
No, we must first ascertain if the oil is there. Some believe that the oil would have been burnt in the fire, but we need to physically see it first. That is currently taking place. This is not an easy task. At the current state of the ship, no one can really go into the ship and examine the tanks and check if the oil is still there. The current situation does not allow us to get an estimate on that. We still cannot check as to how much of oil is on board the ship.
If an oil spill occurs, there are a number of methods that we can respond to in a manner that suits the weather and the nature of the environment. We are ready for anything. Firstly, we can lay booms around the ship. These equipments are ready. We could also use chemical known as dispersion to control the oil spill. These chemicals are also ready. If the weather does not allow us to place the booms or spray this chemical, we will have to prepare to clean up the oil spill along the coastal belt of the country.
ඒ කටයුත්තට අපි සූදානමින් ඉන්නවා.
ගිලුණු යම් කිසි විදියකින් ඔය ස්ථානයේ අපේ මුහුදු ගමන් මාර්ගය අවහිර වෙයිද?
ඔතන අපේ වරායේ කොටසක් ඕකේ නිසා නැව ඔතනින් අනිවාර්යෙන් අයින් කිරීමේ අවස්ථාවක් අනාගතයේ ඒවි.
What was the state of the coast today?
Our correspondents reported that debris from the ship had washed ashore along several beaches in the island. Debris was spotted along the coasts in Mount Lavinia, Pulhena, Mathara and Madiha. Meanwhile, although fishermen went out to sea from the Dikovita fisheries harbour after a hiatus of a number of days, they returned empty-handed.
We can't work anymore with these issues. We are asked not to fish close to the ship. That is where most of the fish are. We were asked to fish close to the harbour, but the fish stocks are less there. Then we also can't sell our fish stocks. How can we live like this? We had a similar issue with the MT New Diamond vessel, but even in that case we didn't get the compensation that we claimed. Secondly, they had only paid us a very small fraction of the compensation that was agreed upon. We have a suspicion as to if there are underhand deals at work. There is a device on board this ship that can clarify everything that happened. There is a VDR device that has records of what was discussed with the harbour master, the communications between the captain of the ship and the shipping company, and all the communications with the Indian and Qatari port. But I don't think that we even took the VDR device off this ship.
Meanwhile, the Galle Magistrate Court had issued an order to the Hikkadu Wildlife Office to send the corpse of a turtle that washed up on the Unawatuna beach to the Attidia Veterinarian's office for an autopsy report. The veterinarian will ascertain as to if the death of the turtle was caused by the fire on board the MB Express Pearl and the resulting pollution.
How will Sri Lanka respond to the damage caused? We definitely have the ability to claim compensation. The necessary steps to claim this compensation is being taken under the advice of the Attorney General. There is something called a VRC. If we find that, we can uncover a lot of information.
The recovery of this device is being carried out by the Navy. The CID is currently conducting an investigation into the matter. If the VRD is recovered, with the assistance of the Sri Lanka Navy, steps are being taken to hand it over to the custody of the CID. We have spoken to the insurance company and the Singaporean state entity that owns the ship, and they have agreed to make the interim payment. When we calculate the value of the current damage caused and hand it over to the company through our Attorney General, they are bound to reimburse the sums spent for the beach cleanup and other operations.
beach cleanup සම්බන්ධව කටයුතු කරන්න ඒගොල්ලෝ බැඳිලා ඉන්නවා.
ඉන්දියානු වරායත් එක්ක කටාර් වරායත් එක්ක
The communications with the Indian and Qatar reports are recorded here. But I don't believe that we recovered the VDR even when the ship was sinking. So we are now suspicious as to if both parties colluded to sink the ship. I believe that this ship did not just sink in Sri Lankan waters, but was sunk intentionally and for ulterior motives by a number of groups. That is the true story here.
ඒක තමයි මේකේ ඇත්ත කතාව.
මේ නෞකාවේ සිදුවීම අපි
We see the sinking of the ship as a random and unfortunate incident. Some statements made seem to suggest that we had taken a candle and set the ship ablaze. I must remind everyone that seeking political mileage through an incident like this is shameful.
සෝබන ක්‍රියාවලියක් කියන එක මතක් කරගන්න.
මේ වනතෙක් මේ නැව් සමාගමේ ලංකාවේ ඒජන්තවරයාව
Authorities have been unable to arrest the Sri Lankan agent of this ship. Who is the influential minister who is trying to protect the local agent of this ship? Who is this minister? If there are ministers who are having underhand deals with the local agent of this ship, investigate and find out who they are. Investigate as to if the high-ranking officials at the port authorities are having secret deals with this agent. Who wants to destroy this silk route in our country? Honorable President, these could be conspiracies. We need to investigate as to if this is a conspiracy to hinder the progress of the port city project.
අතරමඟ නතර කිරීමේ යම් කුමන්ත්‍රණකාරී වැඩපිළිවෙලක තවත් එක් දෙයක්ද කියලා මේක සොයා බලන්න ඕනේ.
Heavy showers were experienced in many parts of the country today. Now, according to the Department of Meteorology, the highest rainfall in the 24 hours that ended at 9 this morning was reported from Ingiriya. The rainfall in Ingiriya was 326.5 millimeters. A rainfall of 336 millimeters was reported from Agalavatta on the 13th of last month. According to the Met Department, in the 24 hours that ended at 9 this morning, rainfall in Dansalwatta Pasyala of the Gampha district was 287 millimeters, while Horana received a rainfall of 244.5 millimeters. The Met Department predicts heavy showers of about 150 millimeters in the western and Sabaragamu provinces and in the Galle and Matara districts. Many low-lying areas including Yathalgoda, Ganegoda were inundated after rivers in the Gampha district overflowed due to heavy showers. Area residents alleged that the floods were aggravated by the construction of the Central Expressway in Ganegoda.
කලින් කිව්වා කිව්වට මිනිස්සු පිළිගත්තේ නැහැ මිනිස්සුන්ට මේ කනුඩ යනවා කියලා බොරුවට පොරොන්දු අරගෙන ලියුම් වලට අස්සන් අරගෙන මේවා දැන් ගොඩ කරලා ගොඩ කරාට පස්සේ මේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ දැන් මේ වෙනකොට මේ මිනිස්සුන්ට ජීවත් වෙන්න ක්‍රමයක් නැහැ මේ ගම්මානේ පමණක් නෙමෙයි ඉදිරියේදී තව ගම්මාන රසක් ගොවිබිම් රසක් යටට නියමිතයි.
Meanwhile, 15 houses in Thiruvanawath Mirigama were inundated today. Two spill gates of the Kukuleganga Reservoir were opened after water levels increased due to heavy rains. This resulted in the overflowing of the Kudaganga that inundated the Bulat Sinhala Molkavu main road in Paragoda. Flow of traffic along this road was hampered. The rise of the water levels of the Kalani River flooded the Hanwalani Tambur Road in Pahalawala Pugoda. A canal located along the Norris Canal Road in Maradana also overflowed. A tree had fallen and obstructed the main entry road to the Sri Javardhanapura hospital. One person was injured when the police and area residents attempted to remove the fallen tree from the area. Meanwhile, landslide warnings have been issued to the Gaul, Kalutara, Ratnapura, Colombo, Matra and Nuvareli districts. On to one of our headline-making stories, health sector workers staged a 4-hour token strike today. They staged this strike claiming that the authorities failed to meet their demands over the course of the past few weeks. The token strike, however, had adversely affected many who visited hospitals amid the current travel restrictions across the island.
The health sector trade union staged this protest against a backdrop where the president had gazetted health services as an essential service yesterday. 22 health sector trade unions, including nurses, junior hospital staff, lab assistants and clerks, had joined the strike action. The trade unions have so far made 15 demands, including granting the special risk allowance for COVID-19 and making non-permanent workers permanent.
මම බඩල් කුමරින් නම් ආවේ වීල් එක ආවේ 6 දෙක රුපියල් 9000ක් දීලා නතර වෙන්න ගියාට පස්සේ ස්ට්‍රයික් එකක් කියනවා. ඉතින් මට දැන් යන්න දෙයක් නැහැ නේ මම ආපු වීල් එක ගියා. කතා කරලා කිව්වේ නැහැ නේ මෙහෙම තියෙනවා කියලා අපි දැනුවත් කරනවා අපි එන්නේ නැහැ නේ. දැන් අපි ඇවිල්ලා සත්‍යවදු වෙනවා.
Medical staff of the Kalubovila hospital also joined in the strike action.
මහත්තයාට බෙහෙත් ගන්න ආවේ දැන් එයාට හાર્ට් එකක් බෙහෙත් ගන්න විදියක් නැහැ ස්ට්‍රයික් එක කලින් කියන්න ඕන
බෙහෙත් ගන්න ආවේ ලියාගත්ත දැන් $1 මාර වෙනකන් ඉන්න ඕන
මේ අපි හાર્ට් අටැක් ආවේ මේ ක්ලිනික් එකේදී අද බෙහෙත් ඇත්තෙත් නැහැ බෙහෙත් ඉවරයි මාසික දැන් මේ ගෙදර යනවා යන්න.
Medical staff of the Chilau General Hospital protested during their lunch break today. The medical staff of the Anuradhapura National Hospital were engaged in a token strike from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. this morning. Patients who visited the hospital were severely inconvenienced by this.
මන් ටීවී එකක් හයර් කරන් ආවේ ණයට 2500ක් දීලා ආවේ දැන්. ඉතින් දැන් බෙහෙත් ටික ගන්න නෑනේ. කොච්චර දුකටපත් වෙනවද මිනිස්සු. සල්ලි තියනවා නම් ඕන දෙයක් කර හැකියි. අපි තමයි මැරෙන්නේ.
Medical staff of the Kandy Teaching Hospital staged a strike action in front of the hospital today. Meanwhile, medical staff of the Ratnapura Teaching Hospital, the Medigama Base Hospital, the Mavanalla Base Hospital and Dambulla Base Hospital too joined in the token strike.
Staging strikes like this will hinder our services. It is like cutting off your face just because you don't like it. Health workers who respect the oaths they took to protect the people must think about engaging in constructive discussions with the authorities and solving these issues.
This is the gazette issued by the government last night. This issues essential service directives through the Public Security Ordinance. If masks are given to nurses, then there are no barriers to provide services to the people. This gazette is issued without a proper directive. If we want, we can place a complaint against this to the International Labour Organization again. So we urge the government and the Ministry of Health to act responsibly, provide transport facilities, provide PPE kits and masks, provide these facilities to the health staff and protect the lives of our country. What is the situation of the COVID vaccination drive?
Vaccination drives were carried out in several locations of the Colombo district. A tense situation arose this morning during a vaccination program carried out at the Sudharma Ramaya temple in Moragasmulla, Rajagiriya. The Sinopharm vaccine was administered during the program as tokens were given to selected individuals at their residences.
Only the representatives of Pohottur represent the regional committee. As a resident of this area, even I did not receive a token. We were not informed by the divisional secretariat. Politics is at play here. Stop these degrading politics.
The Sinopharm vaccine was distributed in Gotatua and Vanathamulla areas.
Can COVID-19 vaccines be mixed?
A shortage in the supply of the AstraZeneca vaccine has left over 600,000 people without the second dose of the same vaccine. The Sri Lanka Medical Association said that consideration must be given to the possibility of using the Sputnik vaccine instead of the second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. The SLMA in a letter to the President pointed out that a decision on the matter should be reached after conducting clinical trials. The SLMA highlights that there is evidence that the COVID-19 vaccine can be provided to individuals above the age of 60. The SLMA further pointing to irregularities in the current inoculation program stressed on the need for a review of the current program.
According to the latest report issued yesterday, the COVID-19 death toll stands at 39. The Department of Government Information said that these deaths were reported between the 17th of May to the 1st of June. A total number of 1,566 deaths have been reported so far in the country.
The number of COVID-19 patients exceeded the 3,000 mark for the first time yesterday within 12 days. The number of COVID-19 patients reported from all 25 districts stands at 3,306 yesterday. When travel restrictions were imposed on the 14th of May for the first time, the total number of COVID-19 cases stood at 132,773. By then, 26,116 COVID-19 patients were receiving treatment in hospitals island-wide. The number of COVID-19 cases increased to 166,947 by the Vesak week on the 26th of May. In comparison with the 14th of May, that is an increase of 34,174 cases. By the Vesak week, 43,444 COVID-19 patients were receiving treatment in hospitals island-wide. In comparison with the 14th of May, this is an increase of 17,328 cases. Accordingly, the total number of COVID-19 cases reported in the country stands at 187,205. The total number of COVID-19 patients receiving treatment at hospitals stands at 50,937. It is apparent that the increase of COVID-19 cases during the time travel restrictions were in place can be attributed to the increase in the number of PCR tests being carried out.
What is the current situation of PCR tests?
While the number of PCR tests carried out by the beginning of May was at 18,584, with the imposition of travel restrictions on the 14th of May, the number of PCR tests increased to 24,451. However, only 20,193 PCR tests were conducted by the 26th of May. That number was reduced to 19,314 by yesterday.
Issuing a media release, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa proposed the government pass a sustainable new health act to ensure a strong health service. The release issued by the opposition leader notes that although this proposal has been presented several times, the government is engaged in strengthening its political influence. He pointed out that the government has not paid attention to the lack of PPEs for health workers, mismanagement in the quarantine process, and the lack of medicine for fatal diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and cardiac, while pointing out that the government has abandoned the loan relief scheme in leasing and finance institutions. The opposition leader requested the government to be compassionate towards the issues faced by the people.
Are vehicles being inspected these days?
Inspecting vehicles that enter Colombo was carried out by Sri Lanka Police today as well. The issuing of the special sticker for vehicles travelling for essential services was carried out today. Inspecting of vehicles are being carried out in Colombo and surrounding areas at 56 different checkpoints. According to Sri Lanka Police, these inspections will be carried out until the 14th of this month.
We will be back after this short commercial break. Stay with News First, the voice of the people.
A galaxy of superstar Sri Lankan personalities from all walks of life, sharing their stories, their experiences, their success and even their failures. with thousands of young Sri Lankans filled with ambition and hope.
The Gamada Vipos Leadership Series,
where leaders of today shape leaders for tomorrow.
Welcome back to the news. Salon tea is a world-famous brand with a lot of demand for low country and high country tea leaves. However, with the existing fertilizer crisis, low country tea planters are facing a severe crisis.
The main source of income for people in the Matara, Keeravalagama, Kakundeniya, Pasgoda, Beralapanatara, Urubokka, Talapatkanda is the cultivation of tea. With the existing shortage of fertilizer, tea cultivators claim that there could be a low yield this time around.
මේ දුප්පත්ම මිනිස්සු තමයි ඕකෙන් ගොඩක්ම බැට කන්නේ සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම තේ ගස් කහ පාට වෙනවා.
The tea industry will crash if this continues. Although they said they would provide us with compost, that won't work here. We don't even know the other kind of fertilizer they are about to introduce. This is the fourth month without fertilizer. The owners have run out of money to pay their workers in factories. They have become unable to pay the tea pluckers. In the market today, there is no organic fertilizer and chemical fertilizer. There is no fertilizer of any sort for the tea planters.
This is Sinipura in Kantale. The main source of income for the residents of this village is cultivation of vegetables. The villagers allege that they are unable to harvest any yield from pumpkin and brinjal cultivations due to the lack of fertilizer.
How can agriculture in this country continue any further when the government makes unwise decisions? There should be a long-term plan. This can't be done like how governments change. You can't change things on a whim. Agriculture needs to move forward in the same pace. They dragged us farmers from the frying pan into the fire. If organic fertilizer is imported, these fertilizer might have various microorganisms. Then when imported, these microorganisms are directly brought here. We had to completely abandon the coffee cultivation because of a fungus. This could happen again. When tons of fertilizer are brought down, the load needs to be thoroughly examined for bacteria for over 2 weeks. This is not practical. The Sena caterpillar was not found in Sri Lanka. It arrived here from abroad. There could be various parasites in organic fertilizer imported from abroad.
The
issues with chemical fertilizer need to be stopped. There is no doubt in that. But importing organic fertilizer on that basis has many complications embedded in it. This could change our prevalent biological systems. If these systems change, we are at a risk of facing irreversible outcomes. Importing organic fertilizer is not the alternative for this.
There is now a wide-ranging discussion about the potential situation that could arise through the Selendiva company created to run a number of investment projects on valuable property in and around Colombo.
A cabinet proposal was tabled in May to give Selendiva, which was set up last year to restructure 3 state-owned hotel companies, a power that goes beyond that. Newsfirst highlighted yesterday that according to the proposal, the powers vested in the Urban Development Authority by the relevant act will become impractical. This is because the cabinet paper proposes to transfer the task of developing immovable assets to the government to the private sector through Selendiva. Accordingly, the land area that goes away from the government through Selendiva is about 14 acres. It also includes the site of the Republic Building in Colombo Fort, which currently houses the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Though Selendiva is established under the government, a question arises as to whether the 3 companies proposed by the cabinet paper to set up under it are liable institutions to Parliament, as there is no clear reference to it in this cabinet paper. The United National Party states that the sovereignty of Parliament has been threatened once again with the establishment of Selendiva Investment Limited. A statement issued by the party said that the establishment of Selendiva as an institution authorized by the Constitution to oversee the state economy should be approved by Parliament.
A decision was taken to suspend even the importation of a limited number of vehicles at the cabinet meeting that was held on the 24th of last month. Now, this decision was taken into light of the cabinet paper that was put forward to import 399 vehicles, including luxury SUVs. However, at this point, it is not practically possible to suspend the importation of these 399 vehicles to Sri Lanka.
Prime Minister's office announced that further restrictions were imposed on importing vehicles at a cabinet meeting held on the 24th of last month. However, the cabinet decided to import a number of luxury vehicles according to the cabinet paper issued by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, requesting these vehicles, claiming it was required to expedite the development program of the government. The cabinet paper cites 50 ambulances, 50 water buses and 50 double cabs were to be imported to Sri Lanka. The cabinet paper further proposed an alternative to the vehicle permit issue, since the issuing of tax-free permits was cancelled, and it has also impacted the parliamentarians. Accordingly, letters of credit were opened to import 399 vehicles under a loan facility of 3.7 billion rupees obtained from the Bank of Salon to solve this issue. Although the importation of these 399 vehicles was suspended by the cabinet on the 24th of May, the letters of credit to import these 399 vehicles have been opened by the Bank of Salon on the 29th of April. Bank of Salon has not yet suspended or cancelled these letters of credit. Bank of Salon has been mentioned as the applicant in these letters of credit. In other words, this is a business transaction of Bank of Salon, with the order issued by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka in April this year, prohibiting the opening of LCs to import vehicles still being in effect. A fine can be imposed on the Bank of Salon under the Import-Export Control Act for opening these letters of credit. In addition, the central bank will have to pay duties for these controversial 399 vehicles as well, since the Bank of Salon is not an institution that has been exempted from paying import duty by the government. Thereby, if the Bank of Salon fails to pay the import duty, that would mean that they are evading a tax payment that is due to the government.
Why is the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation Act being amended?
We are currently carrying out a feasibility study to increase the capacity of the current refinery from 38,000 to 45,000 barrels and to build a new refinery in Sapugaskanda with a capacity of 100,000 barrels. This project is valued at 3 billion. After an investor who invested in building the refinery recovers his expenses through profits and withdraw, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation will gain control over it. Before inviting investors, we will have to amend the existing Ceylon Petroleum Corporation Act. Countries like the US, Russia, China, Canada and South Africa have sent out proposals expressing their interest regarding this, even before we gave out our proposals.
කැමැත්ත ප්‍රකාශ කරමේ යෝජනා යොමින් තිබෙනවා ඉන්න පුළුවන් මොකද ලෝකයේ චීනෙ තියෙන ලෝකෙනේ ඒත් අපි ලෝකෙම ඉල්ලනකොට චීනෙනුත් එන්න පුළුවන්
ඕනම පිටරටින් එන විදේශ ආයෝජකයෙකුට
There is a restricted process for all foreign investors who intend to engage in activities related to the refinery process. A proposal to amend this restriction has been presented to the cabinet. We agree that a project to update the refinery process in the country is necessary. But what do they really intend to do by implementing such a project? They intend to destroy the market for the petroleum corporation under the purview of the state sector.
මේ කන්තිල් සංස්ථාවේ මරණ මංචේ නැත්නම් මේ කන්තිල් සංස්ථාවේ මලබෙරේ තමයි මේ වෙයින් හදන්නේ. ඒ නිසා මේ
They are carrying out such disastrous acts in the guise of patriotism. This government is continuing to destroy every nook and corner of this country.
Speaking at a media briefing, Bishop of Kurunagala of the Church of Salon, Kitsiri Fernando, expressed these views regarding the prevailing situation in the country.
We are happy that the vaccination drive is being carried out. However, we see various political influences in the inoculation process. I request the government to prevent these political influences immediately. The fishing communities are facing various difficulties as well. A massive environmental destruction took place due to this sinking ship. Employ specialists regarding this in order to solve this issue. I kindly request the government not to appoint factions who don't have an understanding about this. We see another issue with regards to property. People are afraid whether the country's property will be sold to other countries. We must act independently. We must interact with the international community while ensuring our freedom. The patient must be saved while he is alive, not after he is dead. The law must be enacted on both large and small scale perpetrators. I believe that it must be enacted on regular people in a good way.
ඒක කරන්න නරකයි. ඒක පොඩි ජනතාවට තමයි මම හිතන්නේ අපි ඉෂ්ට කරන්න ඕන ඉතාමත් යහපත් ආකාරයට.
Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, humanity is something all Sri Lankans can never let go of. An incident highlighting the generosity of the common Sri Lankan man was reported from Kilinochchi.
Due to the prevailing COVID-19 pandemic and travel restrictions imposed, kitchens across the country are left without food. Amid such a situation, a group of fishermen of the Shantipuram village in Iranamadu, Kilinochchi, took matters into their own hands in order to lend a helping hand to their neighbours. They had decided to share 1 kilo of their catch with the rest of the villagers. They were able to distribute 70 kilos to 70 families of the village today.
The Pathfinder Foundation and Asia Society Policy Institute report on Sri Lanka and US bilateral relations was handed over to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today.
The Pathfinder Foundation, in collaboration with the Washington-based Asia Society Policy Institute, held a virtual meeting in January 2021 to pursue improved bilateral relations between the US and Sri Lanka. The report on these discussions was presented by Mr. Bernard Gunathilaka to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the Presidential Secretariat today. The discussions broadly focused on economic relations covering trade, investment, science and technology cooperation, strategic and security cooperation, political and common values. The Sri Lankan delegation was headed by Bernard Gunathilaka, chairman of the Pathfinder Foundation and former ambassador to the US. Ambassador Robert O. Blake Jr., former Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs under the Obama administration, and ambassador to Sri Lanka, the Maldives and Indonesia, headed the US delegation.
The Pathfinder Foundation also organized a webinar titled What Can Sri Lanka, the World Bank and the IMF Learn from Each Other? The webinar was moderated by Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, the former governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka.
From the point of view of the Sri Lankans, I think the situation is very serious, and you have a very serious debt problem as well as the current account problems. And it looks like there has to be some kind of debt restructuring in order to prevent this problem from recurring year on. I would say, we've for a long time been harping on a series of major distortions in the Sri Lankan economy. Huge problems that create huge costs to the functioning of the economy. But the thing is, we have to look at the long-run trajectory of this country. That despite all of these distortions, which have been there for 30 years or even longer, the economy has gone from a low-income country to a middle-income country. During a 25-year civil war, per capita growth was almost 3% a year. They're doing something right, despite these distortions. Whatever it is, this economy manages to continue to perform at a pretty high level.
And that's the wrap of this edition of Primetime News for tonight. For the Newsfirst team, I am Azra Hassan, with our sign language interpreter for tonight, Thalka Gabriel, joining us via Zoom. Thank you very much for joining. Take care and good night.
is headlines first.
හෙට සහ අනිද්දා තද වැසි ගම්පහ අවට සුළු ගම් වතුර අවදානමක්. සංචරණ සීමා මැද සෙවනගල රක්ෂිතයක ඉඩම් කොල්ලයක්.
This is headlines first.
හෙට සහ අනිද්දා තද වැසි ගම්පහ අවට සුළු ගම් වතුර අවදානමක්.
This is headlines first.
හෙට සහ අනිද්දා තද වැසි ගම්පහ අවට සුළු ගම් වතුර අවදානමක්. සංචරණ සීමා මැද සෙවනගල රක්ෂිතයක ඉඩම් කොල්ලයක්. හෙට සහ අනිද්දා තද වැසි ගම්පහ අවට සුළු ගම් වතුර අවදානමක්. රාජ්‍ය අමාත්‍යංශ මොකද කරන්නේ? ජනපති විමසයි.